Hello everyone and welcome back to Gregtech New Horizons, where previously we crafted and constructed the clean room, essential for circuit progression. I have made some very minor changes between episodes. There used to be a bunch of turbines on the outside here. However, these were on the chunk boundary, so they've since been moved underneath, and they are looking a little bit cleaner. It's a bit nicer down here, and it keeps everything to do with the clean room in one chunk. We also made a start on the HV line, mainly picking up the macerator, which is currently still processing electrotine. So the primary objective this episode is to get the vacuum freezer, something we were unable to get last time. And surprise, surprise, we're going to have to start off with some circuit crafting. Again, don't worry, we're not going to be doing circuits the whole episode, but I have been making up some sulfuric acid, which we'll need here. Yeah, in this chest right here. And I think we might also try and get some extra quality of life upgrades for ourselves. I don't know, we'll see. Let's have some fun in New Horizons. So first up then on the ever-growing list of things to do was to reset the miners. The first one was in the Twilight Forest mining lapis. And the second one we had in the Nether for copper. Our HV miner was placed back in the Twilight Forest, this time for diamond. We seem to go through quite a lot of diamonds actually for chests, which I used to craft another compressed chest for the MV miner, and that was placed in the Nether for redstone this time. So it's been about 3 hours since that little intro clip, and I definitely didn't intend to spend that long between segments, but look at this, I've been batch crafting a crazy amount of resources here, which we should be able to use to kickstart this episode, and hopefully a few episodes into the future as well. So yeah, we're going to beeline straight for this vacuum freezer, because it's the most time consuming thing, at least to run it. And to make this happen, we're going to need something called the workstation, which is the name for the first EV circuit. And this is also where we need to use the clean room to craft this circuit. But we're going to be a little bit more efficient with things and pick up another LV energy hatch. And we're actually going to run the clean room at LV, so as you guys know, this thing does require its own power source, which currently has an advanced gas turbine and MV gas turbine. We're going to switch this out with an LV version. And this thing is going to take actually 2 amps of LV, but only to the point where it gets to 100% efficiency. And then after that, it's going to use less power than if we were to run it at MV. So yeah, we'll end up saving a bit of benzene, not too much. And I've just restarted this thing. It's going to take quite a while to get back up to efficiency. But every bit of benzene we can save is a win, because the requirement for benzene is going to go through the roof once we get to EV. And especially once we start to run 2 or more EBFs. So yeah, circuit crafting, it's a major pain point in Gregtech, and something that has to be addressed. So whenever we're crafting circuits from now on, especially since we have access to the cheaper recipes, thanks to the plastic circuit board, which is also a quest, we want to be crafting as many as we possibly can at any one time. Within reason, of course. Actually, maybe without reason. Just craft as many circuits as you can. Yeah, so I wanted to batch craft a lot of the stuff, and I have some drawers set up here for the common circuit components, all of the SMDs. We have some of the wafers, which we started to craft last episode. Let's see what else we got here. Capacitors, small coils. These can actually be replaced with SMDs down the line. It's just that we don't have the proper materials for that, and that's something we'll get into later on, because during those 3 hours of preparation work, I did actually identify some things which we're going to pivot to and address this episode. Things which were not originally on the agenda for today, but they have to take priority, and the main thing is plastics. So this whole section right here is going to be getting rebuilt today, but not before we craft and run the freezer. Okay, so we have to continue the recursive crafting, except now instead of starting at LV, we start at MV circuits, the integrated circuit. And we use the integrated circuit to craft the HV circuit, the processor assembly, and then we use that to craft the workstations, the EV circuit. Okay, so for the MV circuits, it's going to be SMD transistors, fine red alloy wire, central processing units, plastic circuit boards, SMD resistors, and capacitors, and this should start the craft, right? Perfect. And I believe that we have exact amounts in this chest, so we shouldn't be left with anything extra. Except I don't think we've made enough capacitors, we're missing 4 stacks. So this is enough materials actually for 2 stacks of MV circuits, and pretty much every material there except the wafers takes plastic of some sort, of some variety, mainly polyethylene. Okay, bear with me a second, this is going to take a bit of explanation. Most of the circuit components can actually be crafted with different materials and they will craft the same thing. A prime example of this is the SMDs. So to craft this integrated circuit, which is the one we're doing, you need one from each of these boxes here. Ideally, you want to go for the cheapest thing, right? The thing is, for the SMD capacitor, the SMD transistor, and the SMD resistor, it all takes some form of polyethylene. Yeah, at least the most efficient one. You can see it has different outputs as well. This one gives 16, whereas this one gives 32. And it depends which input materials you use. So, for example, these capacitors and the SMD capacitors are interchangeable. We can use these for all the same circuits, most of the same circuits. However, these can be crafted with either tantalum or aluminium, and that will give us different amount. Fortunately, we do have the tantalum to use. However, what we don't have is the polyvinyl chloride or the silicon rubber, which gives the extra output. The polyethylene which we have been using gives slightly less in the form of the capacitor. And polyethylene is also used as a fluid, so we go through a lot of polyethylene for all of these circuit components. A big part of why we have to revamp the plastic setup today. Ah, that's right, we're also going to need these capacitors for the HV circuit, which we're about to craft, the processor assembly. And this is used 8 capacitors at a time per circuit. So I think we'll have to switch over to the aluminium recipe and just settle for the inefficiency. Settling for inefficiencies is sometimes just a compromise you have to make. Yeah, I guess I didn't do enough preparations for this, but I want to take my time and get as many as we need, not just enough for the quest and move on. However, after some circuit assembly, this should be the last circuit, 2 stacks of integrated processors. Okay, so now the next quest is for small coils. We've already crafted these ahead of time. And now it's for the HVs, the processor assembly. I haven't yet decided exactly how many of these we'll make. Wait, 8 at a time? No, that's for 4. Yeah, 2 at a time for the workstations. We need 3 workstations for the freezer. I'm not going to worry about the mainframe, but let's aim for 5 workstations. That'll be enough for the circuit assembler and enough for the freezer. And in that case, it's going to be 10 processor assemblies. I think everything for the workstation we should have, including blue alloy bolts. We were making some of those. I believe those were in the fluid solidifier, yeah. And then there's also the diodes. The SMD version of the diode is actually where the platinum comes in, I believe. We can use fine platinum wire for the most efficient output, which is the reason why we've been chemical bathing nickel in mercury to give us a chance at platinum. So we'll switch over to that recipe eventually, but for now we'll use the regular diodes. Alright, the 10 HV circuits have finished crafting. Oh no, this is exciting. We do not want maintenance issues at this point. Let's also double check the benzene levels. Yeah, we've got a decent amount of fuel to work through. Nothing can possibly go wrong here. Oh, there they are, the first 2 workstations. An extreme circuit, this is exciting. Okay, so now, that was a lot of explanation. Your guys' heads are probably exploding right now. A bit like mine. Yeah, now that we have our precious circuits right here, let's claim our own quest and craft this freezer. Alright, so the freezer is crafted, built and assembled just in between the 2 blast furnaces, which wasn't the original plan, but actually there's a chunk boundary right here. Some things have also changed with the configurations here, but before we look at any of that, let's mix up some nichrome. Nichrome is the alloy we'll use for the next tier of coils on the blast furnace, and is really the primary reason we set up the vacuum freezer. So I believe it's 4 stacks of nickel and 1 stack of chrome, should give us 5 stacks of nichrome. Does it not? Oh, the game got me again. Look at this, we need HV for this. Oh, we need an HV mixer for this thing. Okay, I believe we should have some HV circuits left. Okay, there you go, HV mixer. This is going to take the place of the HV macerator, which used to be here last episode, and is now actually being moved to the LV line. And you might be thinking, wait a second, HV machine on an LV powered line? It was actually King who pointed this out in the comments. So thank you very much for this tip, King. Basically, all of the ore pulverization recipes are only 2 EU per tick, which means we can actually run it on technically ULV power, and it's still going to run perfectly fine as long as there's actually space in the chest here. So again, that's another way we can save benzene by not having to accept the low efficiency rating of the HV gas turbine. And in fact, back here we're technically using steam power, which is free because of the solar boilers. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? 4 stacks of nickel, 1 stack of chrome dust. Now it's off, now it's mixing, okay. Oh nice, look at all of this electrotine. I forgot I put this through here. Okay, so now back to the freezer and EBFs here. I've moved the 2 EBFs along a couple of blocks to fit the freezer in between. So up front here is the output bus. Whenever we cook the nichrome in the EBF, we get hot ingots, similar to tantalum, which have to be cooled in a vacuum freezer at least HV tier. So we're going to go for double MV energy hatches, since we haven't been able to make the HV energy hatch just yet. Actually, let's not connect these together. So yeah, we've got 4 gas turbines at MV tier to give us 4 amps of MV, which of course equates to 1 amp of HV. Our main benzene fuel tank is still going to be here in the middle, and this can service all of the gas turbines for the EBF. And we'll also send a line down here. Make sure we shutter all the pipes. So that should give benzene to all of the gas turbines. I should have done a backup again, but no explosions. We got everything plugged in correctly. Yep, all of these are receiving benzene. So this thing should be powered. We of course need to perform maintenance here. The other thing I've also changed about the EBFs is that I've moved the position of the buses on the bottom layer. So the output bus is now in the middle, and we're actually going to send the outputs of this up on Electrum item pipes on both EBFs. And this is going to go into a low voltage type filter on the input bus of the vacuum freezer, which is this one here. And what this allows us to do is filter in all of the hot ingots. There should be a setting here for hot ingot. Yeah, right here. So this takes the ore dictionary name ingot hot. Actually, you know what? We're going to switch this out with conduits. That way we can use priorities. It's a bit expensive doing it this way, but we have the conduits, so we'll use them. Extract on blue. So inside the type filler, we want this on the highest priority. We'll put it to priority 10 on insert blue. And then on a slightly lower priority, we can put it on an output chest, which is going to go here. Is that going to open? No. Okay, we'll do a double output chest and we'll put them here instead. So these will be the 2 outputs of both blast furnaces. Another conduit here on insert blue, lower priority. Hello, Creeper. Nice of you to join us here. I had a few of these guys when I was crafting circuits as well. Oh, they make me so nervous. Okay, and then the input hatches are on the far sides here, so input for oxygen. And I think this EBF we'll use for things like nitrogen. We're going to start coming across a lot of recipes which require alternate fluids to craft. Okay, so now the mixer should have finished some of the nichrome at least. Oh yeah, the nichrome is a prime example of something that takes the nitrogen gas. And actually the game has got me here again, look at this. We need EV to cook this in the blast furnace. And of course, our blast furnace is only running at HV. We basically have 2 options here. We can either go... Actually, no, we only have 1 option. We are going to have to craft the HV energy hatch, and it looks like for that we're going to need the HV assembling machine. I did account for this last episode when I was counting circuits. I just didn't think we would need it for nichrome specifically. But with the amount of excess crafting I've been doing, we should have all the materials for it. Like anytime we have any excess gold, I just coat some wire. A couple of stacks of stainless steel every now and then, make them into rods. So it should just be a matter of assembling the assembler. Okay, 2 robot arms. I think we're missing the machine hull. Avengers assemble. Nice. It's going to go right here. Now then, we're probably looking at another rabbit hole to craft the energy hatch. Energy hatch is typically one of the most difficult things to craft within a specific tier. It normally requires some sort of obscure wafer. Yeah, looks like we're going to have to make low power ICs. Some sort of yellow lens. Which it seems we can craft from Thaumcraft air crystals. Compress it into the block, cut it into the plate, and then put the plate through the lathe. And we should have some spare phosphorus doped monocrystalline silicon boules, which we do. The air lens goes inside the laser engraver within the clean room, and that should get us the low power ICs. And it looks like actually we had some spare wafers in here. Okay, so other than that, it looks like we also need some sort of coolant cell. Oh, I remember this. Sodium, potassium. This was a bit of a roundabout recipe, right? Rock salt and liquid sodium. How do we get liquid sodium? There's like a million different recipes here. Which one is it? It turns out we had to make a new machine at MV tier called the fluid heater. It's safe to say we'll be making a lot of energy hatches moving forward, and all of them require this sort of coolant. So with the fluid heater we could get the liquid sodium, and then we combine that in the distillery with some rock salt, and that gives us the sodium potassium. From there we can it into the cell, and the cell is what we use to craft the energy hatch. All the other materials for the energy hatch we already had. Unfortunately, I did batch craft some energetic alloy, which are used for the coils at this tier. So now, of course, if we have higher tier of energy hatches, it also means we need higher tier of generators. So these gas turbines have to be replaced with at least HV, and that I definitely didn't account for when I was crafting circuits, so I had to craft some more HV circuits. gather a few more components, and crafted up 4 HV gas turbines. Alright, so that was one rabbit hole I did not expect to jump down today for Nichrome. I did craft up some extra HV energy hatches. We got 4 and we only need 2 for the blast furnace. So this should take it up to EV. We're going to hook this up in exactly the same way we had the MV one, except instead of annealed copper, we're going to use blue alloy. We are still going to use the battery buffer as well. I'm currently working on getting some more HV batteries. We have 2 right now. And instead of MV turbines, we use HV gas turbines. I've said this before, but there's something just so satisfying about plugging stuff in. Not when it explodes, of course. I did just do a backup, just in case. But I think we should be okay here. It has benzene. It's turned on, nothing is exploding, which is good. Yeah, every energy hatch can handle 2 amps, so 4 amps of HV equals 1 amp of EV. So now we should have an EV blast furnace here. And more importantly, we should be able to start cooking up some of this nichrome. I did make a few extra stacks, just to make sure we would have enough. And of course, we don't want oxygen here. We're going to get a massive debuff. 40 seconds of mining fatigue, weakness, slowness, hunger, which is the reason we now carry milk in our backpack, so that we can get rid of the debuffs. And yeah, the nitrogen is something we can get from the benzene system, which is not something we had last season. And I'm extremely grateful to actually have this on backlog. Yeah, look at this, full super tank of nitrogen. I think it's not technically required, but we are definitely going to make sure to use it because it cuts the energy cost and the time to cook. Okay, do you work, blast furnace, please? Uh-oh. Oh, that's not good. You know what it is? I think we forgot the batteries. So it's only got 2 batteries in there, and every battery is 1 amp output from the battery buffer. Where did I leave those things? Yeah, and we need all 4 HV amps to go through to the blast furnace. Okay, take 2, we've given it 4 batteries. Aha, now we're cooking. So yeah, 60 seconds per ingot, times 7.5 stacks of nichrome. That is a very long time. Now let's see if it makes its way to the vacuum freezer. It should, because the priority is set on the type filter to accept all the hot ingots out of the blast furnace. Okay, 3 seconds, we should see this light up. Nice. Okay, now we wait. Did we get it? Yes, we got our first nichrome. Yeah, and now we wait patiently for things to process. Although realistically, we have a lot of preparation to do for the next project. Yeah, and next up is plastics. On second thought though, actually, let's do some more Thaumcraft. We've been doing a lot of Gregtech recently. Of course, we do need to rely on Gregtech for this though. We can't ever escape Gregtech. We should get some Salus Mundus from this. I would like to upgrade the wand from the iron-capped Greatwood wand to the satin-entwined Greatwood wand. And there's actually a pretty funny reason as to why I want to do this. It's totally unnecessary for us at this point, but that's exactly why I want to do it. So we do have to start off with a bunch of research. We're going to have to pick up some extra warp. Oh, okay, another giant research to start us off. I like it. Hey, wait a second. You shouldn't be in here. Look at this guy. Just dropping grass blocks everywhere. I don't really want to hit him either because he's a pretty strong enderman. Okay, this should be the research. There we go. More permanent warp. I believe that should have unlocked the recipe for the wand. Yeah, so we need some more stainless steel, enchanted cloth caps, which we just unlocked the research for, and some more lich bones. And we got the bare minimum from the Twilight Forest a few episodes back. However, we also got the lich trophy. I ain't fighting no lich anymore. Because since we got our HV assembling machine, we can actually use the lich trophy along with some Salus Mundus. The trophy shouldn't be consumed, and 45 seconds later, we got ourselves some extra lich bones. Also, I need you guys to settle a debate. Is it pronounced Salus Mundus or Salus Mundus? That is the question of the day. I've always said Salus Mundus. I don't know which one is right. Alright, so we got some enchanted fabric, which we use for the cloth caps. I think we need a bit more though. And actually, one of you guys mentioned in the comments that if you harvest cotton with left click, then it keeps the growth at 50%, whereas if you harvest with right click, it goes to 0%. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if that's intended or not, but I'm totally going to use this. Oh, these endermen. We're going to have to set up a farm for them one day. You know what? The catch with this is it seems like you get less. Right click gives you a chance at more than 1. It seems that left click only gives you 1 at a time. I was wondering why we had so few cotton from a full harvest. Oh yeah, and redstone signal to the armor stand should allow us to fully swap the armor set. Thank you very much for that tip, by the way. Oh yeah, and also these primal shrooms apparently work with the watering can. Seems pretty slow. It does look like it works though. Another awesome tip, thank you guys. I did read all the comments. So now we can use the cotton for enchanted fabric, and the enchanted fabric with some gold caps for enchanted cloth caps. Probably not two at once, yeah. Yeah, now we can put the new wand caps and the lich bones together, and this gives us the next tier of wand, the satin entwined greatwood wand, which I don't think is a quest because there are so many different varieties and combinations of wands. We are going to scan it. So this thing also has a capacity of 50, however you'll notice that it does have a reduced V cost, in that the iron greatwood is actually 110%, so there's actually a penalty on crafting with this one over the satin entwined. And what we're going to invest in with the new wand is actually our first spell, the One Focus of Equal Trade, which is actually a quest. And let's see if I remember how to use this. So it has to be equipped to the wand. I believe there's some sort of keybind somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh nice, it even changes the aesthetic of the wand. That's pretty cool. And we are going to use it on the EBF. So it's actually been a few hours, we should have some nichrome here. Oh yeah, we are going to throw this nichrome through the wire mill. You guys probably know where I'm going with this, right? So we're working towards the Nichrome Coils, which takes molten Kanthal. If you'll remember, I was making up some Kanthal before the episode started, we have it here. We also need some mica, which we should still have. Yeah, we got 28 stacks. That's plenty. The Kanthal has to be molten Kanthal. And so now in the HV assembling machine, molten Kanthal, circuit 3, mica insulator foil and 2x nichrome wire should give us our next set of coil blocks. And I believe we should have, when all is said and done, we should have enough nichrome for 2.5 sets of coils. I don't exactly remember how much nichrome I mixed up, but it's 2 stacks of ingots per set of coils for the blast furnace. Either way, I'm confident we have enough for both of our blast furnaces. And the other one over here, actually, we are running right now for stainless steel. This is using the old power setup for the first blast furnace over there. This is running at HV, double MV energy hatches. These new coils are going to allow us to process higher tiers of material like tungsten. And we also get an upgraded overclock on many of the recipes we currently run. If the heat coils are at least 1800 Kelvin above the recipe temperature, then we run at 4 times the energy cost and 4 times the speed, compared to 4 times the energy cost and 2 times the speed. So it's well worth upgrading your energy coils whenever you can. And again, this is going to be another way we can save on benzene. Alright, we got our 16 nichrome coil blocks. And now we're going to do this the fancy way. I think we have to place it down first, shift right click to set the block. I really hope this works. Oh yeah! Now that is how you swap coils in style. And we might as well swap out the cupronickel here for Kanthal. Oh yeah! It's so unnecessary, but I love it. Alright, the rest of this nichrome has to smelt up. And in the meantime, let's rework plastic. Well, this was a bit of a head scratcher for sure. There is absolutely no question though, this is my favourite way to play this pack. Like messing around with all the machines, connecting up all the wiring, figuring out all the chemicals. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. Perhaps not the most thrilling thing to watch, but I'm super enthusiastic about this, so I want to share with you guys exactly what this thing does. So inputs for this is oxygen, oil and chlorine here. Outputs is polyvinyl chloride, polyethylene, And I guess technically we get PVC sheets and polyethylene sheets. We get tiny piles of carbon and we get sulfuric acid. Is the hope. I've not actually put this to the test yet, fully. I was using batteries and moving things around manually, so we'll see if everything comes together here. The main inputs for this is going to be oil, of course, which we're still getting from the little LV pump that we made I don't know how many episodes back. I'm kind of surprised it's still pulling up some oil from this field. I feel like it's been here forever. But I did fill this with some aluminium cells, so we should have some oil we can collect here. Obviously though, it's not the most ideal situation when we have to run out to an oil field every now and then. And I was very seriously considering switching to a more renewable source of polyethylene. But honestly, the oil route is just way better, I think. And if you were observant at the very beginning of the episode, you might have noticed I've started to work on a solution for oil. But that is something we'll look into next episode. So all of the oil goes right here. And the super tank will set to automatically output to the distillery on the right. Yeah, one other thing you might notice here is that they're all LV machines besides this distillery. And while it technically doesn't need to be MV, I mean, we had it from the old system, so I decided just to use it. And it might give us some flexibility when we choose to change the way we're doing oil next episode. So yeah, MV distillery circuit 3, without any power. Of course, it has a gas turbine back there, but the rest of these machines I've still yet to power. And there's one thing I want to point out with the power system actually. So generally, I like to set the rule where you have the cable amperage maximum capacity equal to the input of the amperage you're given the cable. That doesn't make any sense. What I'm trying to say is, if we were to generate 6 amps of power, I would put a cable which can handle all 6 amps all the way through. But it's not the only way to do it, and we can get away with a setup where we mix cables like this. You see, unlike Community Edition in 1.12, this version of Gregtech uses a request system for the amperage. So for example, each of these steam turbines produce 1 amp each, so it's 3 amps by the time it gets to this tin cable. And this is 4x tin cable, so it can handle 4 amps, right? However, all 3 of these amps are not going to make it all the way to the end of the cable, unless we have 3 separate machines requesting 1 amp each. Or maybe like an arc furnace, which has 2, but we'll ignore those edge cases. Generally, single blocks request 1 amp each, so this setup here would be illegal, right? Because we have a 1 amp cable requesting 3 amps from these different machines if they were actually plugged in. Yeah, if we were to do this, turn these turbines on and run recipes in all 3 of these machines, then the cable would certainly burn up, because this is only 1x tin cable, which can only handle 1 amp. However, if we're smart with the way we lay out the cables, we could certainly do like this, where the 3 amps gets to this 4x tin cable, and it would still be able to provide 1 amp to the unpackager. Then we're left with 2 amps, which is able to go on a 2x tin cable, so that could also go to the distillery. And then there's only 1 amp being requested at the end, which has 1x tin cable. Basically, this setup wouldn't burn and the previous setup would burn, so we can actually use that to our advantage and save on the expensive redstone alloy cable. And these ones are the lossless cable at LV, so we don't lose any power no matter how far we take these cables. So because we have 5 generators here, we're going to have to go with 8x cable. I can already tell you're typing out a comment. Yes, we could be more efficient with this. We could split up the generators here and use 2 sides of the battery buffer. It's more just for demonstration purposes and so that I can keep myself right, because this is a mechanic we'll certainly be making use of in the future. We can also use diodes actually to restrict the amount of energy flow in one direction. That's also another option if you don't feel like calculating things out. Anyways, back to this polyethylene setup here. Let's do a quick backup just in case. So we have a tank on the front here, which will be our manual input for fuel, i.e. benzene. And then on the left hand side we have a pipe which is going to receive the benzene. We will want a pump on import. Please no explosions here. Okay, the distillery turned on. Yeah, so that small pipe that's connected to the benzene line is this one here. It goes to this MV gas turbine and then also goes to all these LV gas turbines. And then all of these gas turbines go into a battery buffer, 8x battery buffer. And then from there it goes on to some 8x cable. And then there's 4x on the left hand side, and then it continues on 8x on the right hand side. So over here we have a maximum of 4 machines, so that's 4 amps, which can go on 4x cable as we saw. And over here there's like 6 machines I think. And then there's also the centrifuge on the far left, which is just powered by a steam turbine. Oh nice, it looks like things are starting to work here. So from the very top, the distillery is now actually distilling the oil into naphtha, sulfuric naphtha, on circuit 3. And you might remember we used to do light and heavy fuel. The reason we've switched to naphtha is that it actually gives us 500 litres of ethylene, compared with just 250 litres of ethylene. So it actually doubles the ethylene output, which is the only thing we're actually after out of this. And yes, we could get all of the outputs from distillation if we go with the distillation tower. And I was actually considering that now that we have the workstations. I don't know if I made the right decision, honestly. So yeah, distillery circuit 3 turns it into sulfuric naphtha. Then we have a conveyor module to send into the chemical reactor, which receives hydrogen from this tank here. We can either manually input hydrogen or we can get it from centrifuging limonite. So that's taken over here into the chemical reactor on circuit 4, and that severely steam cracks the naphtha. And then the cell of naphtha goes on this item conduit. You could easily use a Gregtech pipe for this. And that reacts it with steam, which comes from the main steam line. That's this pipe down here. Circuit 3 severely steam cracked, then it's sent to the distillery on the right. Severely steam cracked on circuit 10 will give us that 500 litres of ethylene. It's buffered in this tank here, and then it gets round robin between 2 different chemical reactors. The first mixes it with oxygen, which becomes polyethylene, and the second mixes it with chlorine, which we get from this tank here, and this becomes vinyl chloride. And we also get hydrochloric acid, which goes here via this fluid conduit. It shares the block space with the item conduit, so that we can send the cell of vinyl chloride where it gets mixed with oxygen here on circuit 1. This becomes polyvinyl chloride, and this was the material we need for all the circuits. And the final row of machines up here is for this hydrogen sulfide. We react with oxygen to give sulfur dioxide, react with more oxygen to give sulfur trioxide, and then react with water to give us sulfuric acid, which is then buffered in this fluid tank. A few more things to point out here. We have 1 oxygen line. I honestly don't know how much value this has, just me running around this system. It's probably impossible to follow for you guys, right? I don't know if it's worth me actually even explaining this stuff. So the water comes from this reservoir, which also shares the fluid conduit. And then there's another potent pipe here for oxygen. That's connected to the super tank on the far left there. And this supplies oxygen to all of the chemical reactors for sulfuric acid. And then we also send it down here, and it snakes its way in between these energy cables, goes into the first chemical reactor to make polyethylene, and then goes up into the second one to make PVC up here. So it's a tiny bit of spaghetti down there. This is very fitting, we can put our spaghetti in the front. Tiny bit of spaghetti in the back, but actually it turned out not too bad. And I wanted it this way so we could easily just fill 1 tank with oxygen, and that would be able to supply the full system. Yeah, things seem to be in order here. The only flaw with this I can see is that we can't recycle the empty cells from this chemical reactor making vinyl chloride, polyvinyl chloride, back to this one for ethylene, which then round robins between polyethylene and vinyl chloride. I couldn't find a way to squeeze another item pipe to here. So perhaps what I'll do is actually make a world download available for all of you guys at this point, if you guys want to actually check out the system for yourself, or any of the other automations around the base for that matter. Not that we have too many right now, but hopefully in the future here we can actually start to automate some stuff. A lot of this Kanthal is also finished cooking by now. Did we finish it all? It looks like it, wow. We actually have another set of coils on top of that Kanthal. I mean, we might as well switch out this blast furnace here, right? Oh, that's so satisfying. Anyways, I think we're going to wrap up this episode right here. Somehow these episodes are getting very, very long, and I want to make an effort to try and trim them down a bit. I don't know if you guys find any value in the detailed explanations like we did for that setup over there. So yeah, maybe let me know, should we keep the detailed explanations in, and the deep dives into the mechanics of Gregtech? I hope at least it helps a few of you guys out. Anyways, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode of New Horizons.